What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Kryptonian saying here, bringing you guys a review for Chainsaw Man Chapter 100. And despite this being Chapter 100 of the series where you'd expect there to be some big gory scene to celebrate the 100th chapter, bodies dropping all over the place, which in of itself, that has to be said that Chapter 100 is a hell of a milestone to reach. This chapter doesn't have the gory scene, but it did, however, do enough that it warrants reminding people not to get attached to characters introduced, because Chainsaw Man as a series has no problem ripping out your heart when you least expect it. That being said, this was a relatively easy and straightforward chapter to get through, though there was a lot of stuff set up in this one. So the chapter opens up with Asa Mitaka walking around with Yoshida and Yuko. The trio is being tasked with bringing back the corpse of a devil, and right away we see that Yoshida is up to something, because we as the audience know that Yoshida is a private devil hunter, and there are signs further established in this chapter that Yoshida actually knows there's something up with Asa Mitaka, besides the fact that Asa Mitaka was dying on the inside from basically asking him out in front of everybody when the War Devil switched places with her, and her classmates still holding the death of Bucky over her head. After Yoshida introduces himself, we learn the name of the new girl in the group, Yuko, the same person a lot of you guys told me last week you think that Yuko might actually be Denji in disguise, and she professes her love for Chainsaw Man just like Yoshida did. So in a great bit of writing, Fujimoto has Asa Mitaka give a less than straightforward answer to the question, does she love Chainsaw Man, where she herself says that she guesses she just feels the same way as the people in the general public, which is going to be something that Yoshida definitely picks up on, which further establishes the sense of dramatic irony, because we as the audience know that while Yoshida is talking like he doesn't know Chainsaw Man, he actually does know who he is, which means that he might be seeing through Mitaka right now, though it's worth noting that we as the audience know that she could feel this way just because of the fact that her parents were killed by devils. So that could be something right there. Now, Fujimoto also gets points for this chapter, using this chapter basically as a scene-setting chapter to make us think that there might be some type of a clash with a devil, from Yoshida explaining that devils can hide in schools to the scene later on in this chapter where Yuko and Mitaka are running through the streets. The whole time you're thinking and you're holding your breath, is this the moment? But nothing actually ever happens in that aspect. There wasn't a big devil popping out waiting to be killed. The War Devil didn't choose violence in this chapter, yet there's still quite a bit to the chapter. We're getting more writing for Mitaka that's done to further highlight the difference between her and her classmates, as well as her and her relationship to the War Devil. The whole purpose of this was meant to show that she's a character that we can root for. Fujimoto does this by showing us that she clearly feels tormented by being back at school. She gets a flashback to killing the pet devil from chapter 98. Her shoes are ruined inside of her locker because her classmates have stuck raw meat on the shoes. She hears people gossiping about her. Fujimoto is trying his best to make her look like a sympathetic character, and I think it's working right here, because it further shows that she's someone who is in over her head, and this relationship with the War Devil isn't going to be one that ends very well, which is, interestingly enough, just further makes this whole interaction with her and Yoshida that much more interesting, because it's clear that Yoshida knows that something's off with Asa Mitaka. All of what we're seeing works so far because it shows the strength of Fujimoto as a writer, that he's 3 chapters into part 2 of the story, and while we do miss Denji, we still have enough of a compelling character that has kept us invested while we count down to the inevitable meeting of Denji and Asa Mitaka. Like, this works almost as a mirror for part 1 of Chainsaw Man. Makima was manipulating Denji to do her bidding, and now we have the War Devil just waiting in the wings, observing, making threats, and we as the audience are just waiting for the other shoe to fall with the War Devil's character. The heavy and dark moments like what we've seen so far in Chainsaw Man Part 2, it really grabs my attention personally, more than some of the more gruesome moments, the comedic moments, or the action heavy moments that we had in part 1. Like, this friendship that's being set up by Yuko and Mitaka has the potential to just rip our hearts out, and I love every second of it. With Yuko, we see how compassionate she is, and with her showing her concern for Mitaka, giving her one shoe so her feet don't hurt too badly from walking around with no shoes, to her getting her to follow her home so she can give her the other shoe, telling her she can keep the shoes or she can sell them for money if she needs money. We see that she's clearly someone who has a big heart, which is why it's going to hurt so damn bad when she eventually gets taken out of the picture. In a lot of ways, this really reminds me of Denji and Aki's brotherhood that we saw form over the course of Chainsaw Man Part 1, and we all know how that eventually ended for Aki. Like, the death flags for Yuko, is one of the biggest thing that came out of this chapter, and anyone who's getting attached to this wholesome and lovable character are going to be right there with you in grief counseling when this is all said and done, fam, because there's no way she's walking out of this alive, especially if this parallel between her and Aki ends up being right on the money. Speaking of being right on the money, we have to look at what might be off of the money quite a bit, which is it almost felt like for a small second the War Devil appeared to care for Mitaka just a little bit. It would make a lot of sense in a way. Mitaka and the War Devil share the same brain, and we've seen before with Puchita that devils can actually care for humans, but like this is the War Devil. We just had her threaten to kill Mitaka, and in this chapter, for the tiniest of seconds, it felt like she might have let her guard down a little bit and disclosed new information. That line about bullying being normal even in devil society, it really stands out, as well as that line where she offered to kill the bullies. I swear that's a sign that there might be more to the War Devil than we thought, and I love it because this is Fujimoto just adding more layers to the character, the world building, and the narrative of the story as more time goes on. Stuff like this is why for right now, I don't care that we haven't seen Denji yet, because there's enough going on here to make this work very well. In fact, in my opinion, the idea of there potentially having been some banter at the end of the chapter between the War Devil and Asa Mitaka, it works because it's making you forget for the smallest moments that the War Devil is seemingly the villain of part 2 of Chainsaw Man. It's kind of how we saw Makima in part 1 as being somebody that was absolutely foul, but she also had redeeming qualities about her that made you at times actually begin to like her. Between this and Mitaka being a victim who we're beginning to feel attachments for, it's going to make that moment when they clash against Denji feel so earned, because we as the readers, we might be conflicted if this is handled correctly, and I have no doubt that Fujimoto is going to pull it off, especially when we consider the fact that her family was killed by devils, and when she meets Denji, she's going to learn that yes, he's a horny bastard, but he's not a bad person either. However, where do you guys fall in this spectrum? Are you beginning to feel sorry for Asa Mitaka? Let me know down in the comment section below, and as you consider that, consider watching these other videos you see on the screen right now.